today we have a really special conversation with Rose Bronstein. And her son, Nate, was the victim of ruthless cyberbullying and just tragically took his life. The Bronsteins, they've taken action and they've created an organization, and they're doing a lot in this fight against cyberbullying and against some of these social media giants. And so really excited to talk with Rose today. I mean, we're on different parts of this fight, but we're really aligned in our mission to help keep kids safe online and really speak up for kids. So, Rose, thank you for your time today. Seriously.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start by talking about Nate, and then I want to get more into the work that you guys have done with Buckets Over Bullying. But I mean, you lost Nate at 15. He was in high school. He loved basketball, among other things. I mean, can you tell us about the Nate that you knew?
Nate had a very vibrant soul. He was super, super intelligent. He loved sports. He followed sports. He was encyclopedic when it came to sports data. You could ask him any trivia question about sports and he could spit out the answer in seconds. He was really into the fantasy football leagues and the
Oh, yeah.
basketball fantasy things. He's always managing multiple leagues at once. Always seemed to come out on top on those. He loved to play basketball, follow basketball. He loved playing the drums. Anything that he tried, he was just naturally good at. He had a magnetic personality. Kids were drawn to him. He had a lot of friends. He had a great sense of humor.
Hmm.
And he just enjoyed having fun, just hanging out. He was just a typical kid.
One thing I want to talk about is I think a lot of parents that we interact with, they think, hey, I know this happens, but this would never happen to my child. And like you're saying, I mean, Nate was just your average involved teenager who loves sports. And there's a statistic that is really shocking to me, in that over a third of students say they've been cyberbullied in their lifetime. And I know, I mean, we see even data from like the CDC that, those who experience that are much more likely to turn to self-harm and other things that, they see as the only way out when they're in such difficult situations. But okay, a little bit of backstory on Nate too. And I want to talk about just for a bit the cyberbullying. So I know he was at the rival school of the Latin School of Chicago, and then transferred to the Latin school in the fall of 2021. And then after facing some bullying there, was looking to go back to the rival school. So, and it started at the school, led to the basketball team and Snapchat. Could you just give us a brief overview of, how this developed with Nate?
He was at Francis Parker, and this is, of course, still during the pandemic. And like most parents, we were just beyond, like, we were just at our wits' end with all of our children being locked up at home and not going to school in person. So in early spring of 2021, the Latin School of Chicago had made a formal announcement that in the fall they were opening up back in person. They were eliminating Zoom. Francis Parker at the time had not made that commitment. So as parents, because we knew it was best for him to be in school, we applied him to
Yeah.
the Latin School of Chicago. He got in, and we had a family conversation. We said, "Are you okay with doing this? We really benefit you to be back in the classroom." So we all agreed. And of course, by fall, Parker had also committed to being back in the classroom, but we had already moved Nate over. As soon as he got to Latin, he was not onboarded correctly. He did not have the support that a transfer student as a sophomore would have needed
Yeah,
coming out of the pandemic. All the kids having been at home online for a year and a half. There was just like a lot of things working against him.
that
And
is a lot.
yeah, the school did not have the right system in place to onboard him correctly. So right away, he just felt isolated, ostracized. He wanted to go back to Parker. And because he was so upset, he was skipping school.
Mm.
He was adamant about going back. So September, October, November, we go through just a lot of stress in our home trying to figure out what to do. And we actually did get him out. We went back to
Yeah.
Parker. He went into the school. He met with the administrator. He asked if he could be let back in. He explained why. He said he wanted to be back at Parker, and the administration made the exception and said, yes, you can come back January 24th of 2022. So in our home, we thought, okay, we got through these horrible few months. He'll finish out the semester at Latin. He'll take his finals, he'll get organized, and he'll go back to Parker. We're done. Like, we'll just put this behind us. We made a mistake. We shouldn't have moved him. In December, the weekend of December 10th, 11th, 12th, there was a basketball game between Parker and Latin, and they've been rivals for decades. And it's not healthy rivalry. I have a huge issue with it. It's not healthy at all. That toxicity needs to change. And because my son had been at Parker and had played basketball at Parker, he was accused of making a post on Instagram implying that Latin was winning the game, and the basketball team and kids outside the basketball team just decided to attack him, harass him, insult him, threaten him because he had shown loyalty to Parker. And now we know, based on the information that we have, that my son didn't even make that post. He was covering for somebody else. This is where parents that are listening, they need to understand how dangerous Snapchat is. He was being constantly harassed and attacked throughout the night. Then another Latin student decided to make a Snapchat post with his face on it, with his middle finger in the air from his bedroom, with other kids there, and it started to have derogatory statements targeted towards my son.
Yeah.
What happened was, when that kid sent out that Snapchat, other kids were grabbing it, they were layering it with more threats, with more emojis, a lot of language that we actually had to look up to understand what it meant. It comes from like the gangster world of rap and language that is foreign to us, but a lot of it is threats to himself and threats to his life. And it kept being reposted. There's still information on there that we have not found out who added to it. And I don't know if we ever will, but there are students out there who participated in it that we just don't know who they are. And so it created this viral effect, and it circulated not only within the Latin school, but then it got pushed out to the Chicago community to other schools.
Yeah.
And my son knew that this was being circulated behind his back. He knew that he was being insulted. Before he went on Sunday, December 12th, he sent an email to the dean of students at the Latin School of Chicago, asking for help, that he was being cyberbullied behind his back, and it was circulating, and he was very frustrated and angered, and he didn't like being treated this way, and asked the dean, what are you going to do about this? And he attached a copy of the Snapchat. So in that Snapchat, it identified 3 students who were a part of it already. 2 of the students' names were at the top of the Snapchat image, because every time a person grabs a Snapchat and resends it, your name comes up, and it even says the timing. It'll say like 36 seconds later, 52 seconds later. And then as well, it identified the student who actually created it. So the administrator had evidence. Like, you cannot argue it's documented evidence with 3 students on there. So the next day, we understand that they had a meeting, an in-person meeting. We're not very clear on what happened in the meeting because the Latin school is not sharing that with us. But what is just another punch to my gut and my soul, and it just burns my soul every single day I walk around, having to absorb this and carry it with me. In his email, he said, I am being cyberbullied. And the dean of students responded back to him and minimized his report by calling it social media behaviors.
And I think what you're saying is something we see over and over again, in that a lot of people, especially teens, are willing to say things online that they would never say in person.
Exactly.
And I mean, reading through the amended complaint that you all filed against the Latin school, and seeing those messages, I can't imagine processing that as an adult, let alone a teen. And the part you mentioned, Nate, reaching out to the dean, at Latin. Um, I want to come back to that because you didn't find out about that, and that's the sickening part, I think, for any parent. Like it was until after Nate's passing that you found out about that. Is that correct?
Correct. My son went to the school to ask for help. The school had a duty of care to reach out to us and say, your son came in
Yeah.
to report cyberbullying. We need to have a meeting, come in tomorrow. Let's all talk about it. We need to address this. We need to stop it. Your son is feeling threatened. If that would have happened, my son would be here today, right?
Yeah.
Because what we found out in addition to that is on Monday, December 13th, my son in the morning had a meeting with the dean of students. He was
Hmm.
attacked again on the text thread by a bully, viciously attacked. He was harassed and humiliated. This bully took a picture of my son that was at our local restaurant, posted it on the text thread to make fun of him more.
Mm.
And then we found out that evening my son went on online to Google suicide.
Mm.
So he went and reported it. The administrator diminutized his report, and so he felt helpless. And then he had been attacked again. So in
Yeah.
his mind, the only way out was
Yeah.
that. And we had no clue. And this is on December 13th, 2021. And we had no clue.
Yeah. And I think it just highlights for administrators, teachers, uh,
Parents,
parents, yeah, the seriousness of this. Um, because I know, when a teen sees something on social media, it has the same, if not more of an effect than someone coming up to their face and saying it. And for, I mean, I can't imagine the pressure that Nate was under. Wow. And the dean at Latin had reached out to you about Nate not wearing a mask at some point, or something, right? But they failed to comply with Illinois state law and their, zero tolerance bullying policy to even let you know.
correct. So was
Hmm.
when he had an unexcused absence from a class, I was notified. When he wasn't following the mask rules at the time, I was notified and he was reprimanded. Um, he was in a presentation with his grade and he was giggling in the presentation. He got reprimanded for that and called in, and I was notified. But when he reported cyberbullying, I was not notified. And yes, we have Illinois bullying policy that states that, and at the time it was very generous that schools had to make best efforts and had 10 days, a 10-day notification period to let parents know if a child had reported an incident of cyberbullying. And they just never notified us. They had plenty of opportunity before January 13th, 2022, when we lost him, to notify us that he had been a target.
If you're speaking to a school administrator in light of this, I mean, I know you understand and you've experienced the politics of it all and how that can get in the way of just putting the students first. I mean, is there anything you would say, a challenge you would leave them with?
Absolutely. I challenge every school administrator to take every report of cyberbullying and or bullying seriously. Just like every school administrator in the country is a quote unquote mandated reporter. By law, they have to report to whomever is in charge, whether when they see signs of child abuse or child neglect. At this point in time, bullying and cyberbullying needs to be brought up to that level. You cannot ignore a report of bullying or cyberbullying. You cannot, because we are at the point where it is so dangerous that it is leading and has led to deadly consequences, not just for my family, but for thousands and thousands of kids across the country. And it just keeps getting exponentially worse.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think what your family has highlighted is quite clearly a more systemic issue at Latin, and you've talked about survivors of Latin, and there's multiple other people echoing a similar vein with that specific school. And I don't want to spend a lot of time there, but I do want to talk about your litigation. So you've sued the Latin School of Chicago. And the part that I think just blows me away is how you and your husband are committed to dedicating any money gained, all the notoriety. You really want to go toward philanthropic efforts against cyberbullying and helping other kids who might be in a similar position that Nate was in. So how did you all come to that point?
Well, first of all, I don't want any monetary award that ever gets awarded to us. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. To me, to put a price tag on my son's life is just sickening. That you can't put a price tag on anyone's life. But as we know in these days and times, the only way that you can create change or compel people to behave better is hitting them, with financial liability. So we hope to turn that into good and use anything that comes out of, we'll see what happens, but to support organizations that are expert led and credible, to support our mission to eradicate cyberbullying. We're beyond raising awareness of it. Everybody's aware of it. Everyone talks about it, but nobody does anything about it. And we need to start with education. I don't think parents, like in my peer group of my generation, are fully aware or truly understand how dangerous digital devices and social media are to our children. So we need to educate parents, and we need to educate the children that are using social media and that are on phones. And the only way to do that is to get into the schools with curriculum that supports this.
Yeah.
So education first. I don't think parents understand that the digital devices that have been given to our kids are weapons. They are weapons being used to hurt our children, and those same digital devices, children are using them as weapons to hurt each other.
Yeah, we work with a lot of families and schools, and when we see tragic incidents like that, I hear some of the trollers will say, this is a parenting flaw, or that if only they had been more involved, and I really don't think that's the case at all. I think we have these platforms and devices that have exploded in recent years with features and all these things. And as a parent, you can do all the right things, and still your child can slip through the cracks, because what you're highlighting, these platforms, devices, they are not designed with the protection of teens in mind. And even in the case of Snapchat and your specific incident, which I want to really lean into, is the unwillingness to even work with you after this tragedy, after Nate took his life. You've reached out to Snapchat, and what have you heard back?
I actually was given Evan Spiegel's email address, his personal email address. He's the CEO of Snapchat.
Yeah, yeah.
And I sent him an email, a very lengthy email, explaining to him what had happened to my family and to my son. I had even sent him the accounts of the bullies who had attacked my son.
So you had the evidence. Yeah, it's not
The
just
evidence,
yeah.
right? I included the Snapchats. I included their names, their accounts. I had asked that these bullies be suspended from Snapchat. At minimum, there's got to be accountability somewhere, right? People get suspended from accounts all the time for lesser behavior.
Yeah. Oh,
And I had asked, like, what are you going to do to hold these bullies accountable and to hold yourself accountable? Your platform is dangerous.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I got no response from him. I got sent an email from somebody who works for him, and the email was just word salad. And then there was a link to a page on the Snapchat website telling me the steps that I need to take to file a complaint, all like, it's like making it as difficult as possible for any parent to actually be able to submit a report and get action done. We have it all documented, and they've done nothing since then, never heard from them again. All the parents that I have connected with, sadly, I'm in a network with hundreds of parents across the country who we've all been victimized the same way. And these social media platforms, whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Discord, they all respond to us the same way. We're so sorry for your loss. We have a family section on how to keep your kids safe, but essentially too bad, so sad, right? And good luck to you. That's essentially, what they say to us. And it's just word salad.
Yeah.
To parents, I implore you, do not think that right now these platforms are protecting our children. They are not, they will not, and they don't care until at some point in time, hopefully sooner than later, we get some federal legislation passed to start to hold them accountable. But that process is very slow. There's a lot of politics behind it. So I don't see that happening anytime soon, which is very frustrating because it needs to get,
It is.
like federal legislation needs to be passed ASAP. In the meantime, really the only way to protect our kids, or to at least get any action taken after you've seen your child being cyberbullied, is screenshot all the evidence, block the bully, get your kids off that platform, and go to law enforcement and get an attorney.
Yeah.
That's really where we're at right now.
Mhm.
And I do know now that attorneys across the country, they're heightened now to how dangerous social media has been for our children. And I know attorneys' fees are extremely exorbitant. And when I've advised parents to get an attorney, they recoil at the thought, well, my first phone call is going to cost me hundreds of dollars. How am I going to afford this? So at least in Illinois, we partnered with an attorney here, Larry Disparty, and we were able to remove that barrier, the cost. And he's working with Illinois families here, offering pro bono legal services to families in crisis. And we're hoping with time, we build a network of attorneys across the country to have one in each state, so that
Wow.
when the family is in crisis, they have someone to reach out to. That would be ideal.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I want to tell parents, I wish I was more educated about this at the time. For example, if your child is being cyberbullied or bullied, and you've been to the school and reported it to the school administration, you've gone to the parents of the bullies and said, your child needs to stop, knock this off, your child is hurting my child, and you're being ignored and gaslit, you have the right to take legal action. You can file cease and desist. You can file restraining orders. There are things, you don't have to automatically go to litigation, but there are legal channels or legal things in place that you can do to put parents on notice and the schools on notice, saying, like, I've tried as a parent to protect my child. You're not doing your job. So here's a warning. I am warning you that if you don't start to get your act together and come to the table to stop this abuse, then the next step is going to be a lawsuit. So, and that it's worked in Texas. Maureen Molak, she lost her son David also to cyberbullying, and she's been extremely successful in actually putting that system into law. And she's got legal aid services set up in Texas. They divided the state into 3 sections geographically, and have legal aid on call every day to help families in crisis. And pre-pandemic, they had seen a 20% decrease in cyberbullying incidents because things like restraining orders, cease and desist letters are impactful enough where if you're a parent of a bully and you get a warning from an attorney, then the parent stops and says, okay, this is serious. I need to really sit down and talk to my child and tell them to knock it off. Versus what I got when I said, your child is bullying my child, make it stop. And the parent deflects and says, not my Johnny. My Johnny is an angel. My Johnny said he didn't do it, so I believe him. My child would never do that, which is never the case. Never the case.
Yeah. it's sad that you've had to that many have to resort to that. Because I mean, even just going back to the Snapchat piece for 1 second, it blows my mind that Snapchat is largely unregulated and unmonitored. Yet a Pew study in 2022 among teens found that I think right at 60% of teens report using Snapchat, and yet no accountability. I mean, we see cyberbullying, we see, I mean, fentanyl distribution, other drugs are distributed, solely using Snapchat. It's just sick. It's sick. But I mean, you mentioned the legal work with buckets over bullying. I want to talk about everything. I know you're hitting this fight from, you mentioned awareness, you mentioned the education, advocacy, and the legal front. What's your focuses with buckets over bullying? And also, I mean, the basketball part, I think that's neat because that's the name and the purpose came out of Nate's love for basketball, right?
That's correct. The name came out of his love for basketball, so we were trying to honor him that way. And yes, we've hit our 3 pillars of our foundation: education, advocacy, and legal action. So I try to divide my time equally among the
Wow.
the 3 channels that we're focused on. And after this happened, Tristan Jass, who's a social media influencer, and he's a phenomenal trick shot basketball
Yeah.
player. And my son was a big fan of his. He had heard about what happened and we had connected, and he just couldn't believe what had happened. He's like, how can I help? What
Mm,
can I do to make this stop? I'm happy to use my platform, because he has a lot of young kids who follow him, like kids as young as like 8 or 9. He's like, I can use my platform to spread positivity, to talk to the kids about how dangerous this is. So we were very grateful that he was open to working with us. So since then, we've been doing a lot of work together and trying to reach kids through the ethos of basketball, about sportsmanship, respect,
mm,
looking out for each other. If you see something, if you see your teammate or a classmate or a friend being bullied or cyberbullied, say
yeah.
something, don't ignore it. All the things that my son, how he was victimized, like how to do the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And so we try to do a lot of grassroots events with Tristan, because we feel that like that personal connection, the face to
I love
face
it.
is what's most impactful. What really makes my soul feel slightly better is the kids come up to me, my husband and to Tristan, when it's over, and they say, thank you so much for doing this. This was really meaningful. This is really fun. This is a great cause. And I have kids reach out to me saying, I want to be a part of this. How can I help? How can I contribute? So if even if it's just one by one child at a time, one teen at a time, then I feel like at least our work is impacting for the greater good.
Oh yeah. I mean, even the bystanders, because I know there's especially in Nate's story that there was in everything I've read and seen some people that were kind of in between and eventually realized, hey, we got to quit nagging on Nate. Like let him be. But I think, by these events, by your awareness, if you can just help some of those people, those bystanders learn the importance of stepping in earlier, I mean, that can be a life save.
At the end of one presentation, a student went up to the presenter, and again, this like got me right in the heart. This
Mm.
child had said to the presenter, I had no idea that what I was doing is considered cyberbullying.
Oh, wow.
And what they were referring to is, and I know a lot of parents are aware of this, when kids are on a group text or a group snap, let's say there's
Yeah.
10, they'll take somebody out.
Oh, yeah.
That that is cyberbullying. It's intentional and it's harmful. You're purposely trying to exclude someone and hurt their feelings. And
Mhm.
after they had expressed that to the students, this child went up to the presenter and admitted, I've been doing that and I didn't realize that that's considered cyberbullying. Parents don't think that that's cyberbullying, and it is. It
Yeah.
is. It is.
Yeah.
And in another situation, a child had gone to the presenter and said, I'm being abused online. And I went to my parents and I asked for help, and they're not doing anything about it, and I'm really scared. And again, like your heart sinks to your stomach. And
Yeah.
we immediately went to find the school guidance counselor and connect
Mm.
the student with the counselor and sent them off. But like at least that child had it in them to go and say, okay, I'm now realizing that I'm really under duress and I'm really being harmed. And we don't know what, we kind of pulled ourselves out, but at least we got that child
Yeah.
with the adult.
Yeah. It's incredible how you're hitting this, because I think it is going to take all of us. It's going to take the education, it's going to take the awareness. And also, I think what we're both really believe in, I know it's slow, the legislative process is slow, but the prospects for legislation and seeing movement on Capitol Hill. So, and I know one thing that you've really spent time uh, pushing forward and talking about is COSA, specifically the Kids Online Safety Act, and I want to. It's a bipartisan effort, but for anyone watching, how can they reach out to their elected official? How can they learn more, get involved in this from a legislative front?
Thank you for asking, because it's really important right now and it's urgent. We need to get this law passed. I need parents around the country, in whatever state you're in, to reach out to your senators,
Yeah.
ask for a meeting, and ask them, for those senators who have not yet co-sponsored COSA, to
Hmm.
ask them to co-sponsor this bill.
Yeah.
Um, That is the only way at this point. You can email your senator, you can call your senator and ask for a meeting, and it is their responsibility as us being their constituents to meet with us and talk to us and understand how critical it is to put the duty of care, the responsibility on these social media platforms to provide environments that are safe for our children. Because right now it is the Wild West.
Yeah.
Uh, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, they are dangerous environments for our children. It's the
Hmm.
same thing, the analogy I use all the time. No parent would drop their child off at a daycare or at school without adult supervision, right?
Yeah.
And everybody is allowing their children to go on these social media platforms with no adult supervision. Why? Why?
Hmm.
And so we need to ask Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok to give parents the option to supervise our children online, but to also put the responsibility on the platforms to make these environments safe. The Snapchat has adults in the room. Evan Spiegel is the adult. He needs to make sure that his environment is safe for our children, period.
Yeah. And the sad reality is we haven't seen a lot of movement and motivation from the platforms. These platforms, some have been around for going on 15 plus years, and we see where we are. And I think this is right now really one of the only viable options I see, and really putting a serious responsibility on these platforms to watch out for teens and empower parents. Because even, I mean, we spend a lot of time at Parent Protect in the weeds, in the settings on these platforms. There's so many workarounds, and even family center and parental controls that Snapchat, among others, have. It's so limited that
It's
I mean,
mirrors. It is
yeah,
limited smoke and mirrors.
yeah,
And these platforms, all they care about is their bottom line, their profits. They do not care that I don't know how many tens of thousands of children have died from abuse and harm from their platforms. And if what blows my mind too, and we all know this, when there is, like, for example, a baby product that harms one child, it immediately gets recalled and pulled off the shelf, right? A
mhm,
car seat, a crib, a toy. When one child is harmed,
yeah,
it's recalled, it gets pulled off the shelf, and the manufacturer is not allowed to put it back on until it's gone through full safety testing and it's safe. The same should apply to these platforms. And I don't understand why parents and why government doesn't see it that way. These are products and that provides an environment for our children, but all it is doing is causing them harm. It's causing them mental health harm, and it's a platform that allows other people to harm them. And we are not, and as parents, they don't allow us to protect them or to keep them in harm's way. And for all those parents out there who say, well, don't give your kid a phone and get your kid off of social media, it's a little too late. There are, 95% of kids, that are
Yeah.
teens are
Oh,
like, how are we, I have two daughters. How am
mhm.
I, a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old? How am I going to go up to them today and say, give me your phones, you're done? No social media, no phones. It's not realistic. It's not reasonable. They have been on it since they were young, because when I handed them a phone years ago, I thought I was handing them a phone. I had no
Yeah.
clue that
Yeah.
I was handing them a dangerous, deadly weapon. No
Mm,
clue. Me and every other parent in the world. So to
yeah.
say to all of us, don't, take the phones away, take the social, it's the same thing as telling an adult, to you, get rid of your phone. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not realistic. It's not realistic at all. It's like the toothpaste has been squeezed out of the tube, and now you're
Yeah.
telling us how to push the toothpaste back in. It's too late. We need to redirect, and we
Mm,
need to come together. Parents, like, especially in my generation, we're the first generation having raised kids on technology and these phones, to take 5 steps back, regroup together, and come up with a better way to allow our kids to be on social media. But all these different entities and stakeholders need to come together to focus on the number one priority, which is the safety of our children.
yeah. And I love the practical steps you've shared. I mean, for families, for parents, whether it's pursuing legal action when conversations don't seem to work, whether it's COSA and reaching out to elected officials and speaking out for fair legislation. One other piece I want to get to is students. If you were to talk to a room of students and there's one child in there or one teen who's being bullied, what would you say to them?
Go to a trusted adult, somebody that that's got your back and is going to take care of you and help you. Unfortunately, in our case, my son went to whom he thought was a trusted adult, and that trusted adult failed him. So if you go to one adult and they're not there to help you, go to another. Keep
Yeah.
looking for that adult to help you and to protect you, because cyberbullying is so harsh. And especially when you're being threatened with physical or deadly harm, find someone to help you, to get you, to protect you from it, and report it. And you need to block, if you're being cyberbullied on Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok, block it, screenshot it, get the evidence so you
Yeah.
can show it
Good.
to the adult.
Mhm.
The first thing you need to do is screenshot all the evidence that you have of you being attacked and cyberbullied, so that you have the documentation, and then block your cyberbully and then report it to a trusted adult. You can report it to the platform, it's important, but unfortunately the platforms aren't really responding.
Yeah.
And then after that, once you have your trusted adult, then the next steps are going to the parents of the bully, going to your own parents if you don't feel that they're the right people to go to, and filing police reports.
Yeah. There is hope, and there is a way out. And I thank you for everything you're doing, Rose, your family. I mean, no one should have to go through what you've gone through over this past year and 8 months, but I know Nate's legacy is living on, and I know countless lives. What you've talked about, what we've seen, have already been touched, and will continue to be touched by your work. So we're in it, in the fight with you 100%, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and attention as well.